Welcome back to the Flex Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike T. Nelson. On this podcast, we talk about all things to increase performance, add muscle, and do all of it within a flexible framework without destroying your health. Today on the podcast, my good buddy, Chad Landers. He is a veteran personal trainer, strength coach, now an author, and owner of Push Private Fitness in Los Angeles. He's been actively coaching clients for over 30 plus years, and most of that time at Push. He was named the 2018 NSCA Personal Trainer of the Year. His background includes a kinesiology degree from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, plus graduate diplomat in sports nutrition from the International Olympic Committee. What I love about Chad is he is practicing it himself and has experience working with real-life clients, like I said, for over 3 decades. He's trained many famous people, including Duff McKagan, Jerry Cantrell, Stephen Perkins, Catherine Dent, and many, many others. He has a brand new book out now, published by Human Kinetics, entitled Building Strength and Muscle After 50. And we talk a lot about that in the show today with Chad. Everything from how to stay consistent, even if that means you have to downshift what you're doing, why you need to avoid the big injury cliff, to modify exercises, don't necessarily worship them. Like there's a lot of really good workarounds you can do. Train the stuff you tend to ignore, such as most guys especially, is the back, cardio, work capacity, and much, much more. So I think I really enjoyed this podcast. Have the luxury of knowing Chad for, probably well over a decade now, and I always learn some cool stuff every time we get to chat together. If you want more information from me, you can hop on to my free newsletter. We'll go to the link down below. Get free daily updates from myself, content very similar to this podcast, and try to make them research-based, but also interesting and hopefully entertaining for you. And then thank you, as always, for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. Make sure to check out all of Chad's stuff. We'll put his links down below, including the book, which is actually really good. I'm not just saying that because he's a good buddy of mine, but he did a really good job with it. And it's principle-based, so even if you're in your 30s or 40s or younger, I think you can still get a ton out of the book. And I would even go so far as to almost recommend it for people who are even very new to strength training. Again, these lessons are almost timeless. There are things that are very specific for people who are older, but it's not just a gimmicky, do these couple things. It's based on actual solid advice. So make sure to check that out. And without further ado, here is our podcast with Mr. Chad Landers. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today, Chad?
All right, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I know you've got a brand new book out about strength training for people over 50. And
I do.
Saw the cover. Yeah, if they're watching the video, that's awesome.
Extreme close up if you see in the video.
I feel like 50 is the new 40 now. Would you agree with that?
I certainly hope so. I like to delude myself. I'm 57 now, and I, of course, have the aches and pains that go along with being 57. But I will say, overall, I don't feel a whole lot different than I did at 30 or 40 or 50 even, which is now 7 years ago. So I definitely feel like I'm living proof that a lifetime of strength training has big dividends. And even if you haven't been doing for a lifetime, as I talk about in the book, there's no better time to start than right now, because it's only going to get worse the longer you wait.
Yeah, and I got 6 years till I'm 57, so that gives me hope. But at 51, I kind of feel similar. Like I haven't noticed really too much of a difference. The only thing I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, is that I can't be quite as stupid as when I was younger.
That is a fact.
If I stop and do F all nothing, like not even go to maintenance mode, just become like a slug with my couch for a couple days,
I feel like I regress backwards so much faster. But as long as I'm keep doing something, I mean, I've even, gone down to maintenance when we've been kiteboarding and stuff like that, and that's been fine.
Sure.
But if I just stop doing everything, I do feel like I just slide backwards much faster. I don't know if you've noticed that at all or not.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed it both in my own training, but also with clients because I've had, clients of all ages, and I've had one of my clients is 76. I've been training him since he was 50. 26 years I've been training. So I've seen him through his 50s, his 60s, now into the mid 70s. And he's as strong or stronger than he's ever been. But, the first thing I asked every client when they come in through the door is, how you feeling today? Anything hurt since the last workout or whatever? And we have to make a lot more concessions to the aches and pains. And it may not have been anything we did in the prior workout. It may be he tried to do this project at home that he probably should have hired somebody else to do. But, he wants his independence as well as a fit 76-year-old. So he'll come in and maybe his back's tweaked or whatever. So we make concessions to that. But he's pretty good about making sure he's got that consistency regardless of what condition he's in, unless he's absolutely, if he's sick, stay home, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's good about, coming in and doing what he can on a given day. And if that's regressed quite a bit intentionally from the prior workouts, that's okay. We'll get it back. We always get it back. But as you get older, as you said, the stupid things have a lot bigger impact. And
bigger cost.
If you take a little injury and you ignore it and make it a big injury, it takes you a lot longer to come back. And I talk about that in the book, that one of the biggest things that is going to get in your way of progress at any age, really, but over 50 certainly, is a lack of consistency. And the number one thing that gets in the way of consistency is injury. Because if you get injured, you just either have to train around it, or some people may be too scared. They may not know what to do, how to train around something. So they may just do nothing, like you said, and that regression is very quick, especially if they haven't been training very long. So I'm always about consistency, playing the long game, living to fight another day, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, one of the big opening, I guess, revelation things. So I've looked at these statistics that show that, as you get older, your function kind of drops and you get closer to mortality. And whether they're looking at, strength or all these different metrics, you see this graph where it hits a, peak and then it slowly kind of drops. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I get it. But the part that blew me away was if you look at the individual data, because this is aggregated over, hundreds of thousands of things in the different studies, the graph looks really kind of like this smooth downward trend. But when you look at it on an individual basis, what you see is it's actually a step function, meaning it's not this nice smooth thing. It's going good, and then whoomp, something happens, and you drop. You kind of get back a little bit, and whoomp, it drops again. And you realize when you look in the data that that's when people get injured. And when they get injured, they maybe get laid up. They can't do anything for 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks, couple months, whatever. Or God forbid they're on bed rest, which is just notoriously horrible for everything. And they never quite get back to where they were before another injury. And so that to me was like super enlightening where, yeah, the data is real. But like you said, if you can just not have these major catastrophic injuries, you're so going to be like stacking the deck in your favor.
Right. Absolutely. And, I'm got as much ego as the next person, and I still like, I post bench press videos, and I'm still doing heavy lifting and stuff, but I listen to my body now. I took about probably almost 3 months off of barbell bench pressing and actually got with a physical therapist in my neighborhood, and we worked hard on just rotator cuff stuff because that was my weak link. And I would, I'd make sure I fit bench in, but then I wouldn't do the accessory stuff and the rotator cuff stuff that I should have been doing. And so it's just, whether you bench press heavy or not, doesn't matter, but it's just finding what works for you in terms of rest and recovery. Do you need to get regular massages or use maybe a little lighter weights for a higher rep scheme than you're used to using when you were younger, or whatever it is, just to try to avoid excessive wear and tear, because it happens naturally. I mean, my knees are kind of shot, and I didn't know it. I didn't know I was doing anything necessarily detrimental to them. But when I was doing 3-lift powerlifting and my squat was getting pretty heavy and I was doing a lot of it in a short period of time, and I developed Baker's cyst. And I didn't even
Oh,
know what a
yeah.
Baker's cyst was. I had no idea. I thought I had like a popliteal strain or something. I didn't know what was going on behind my knees, but I kept trying to lift heavy and whatever. And one day I woke up and I had a pain in my calf and a swollen ankle. And I thought, oh my God, I've got like a blood clot. I've got a DVT. I need to go to the doctor. And they had me come in and they scanned me, from groin to foot. And they were like, no, you don't have a DVT. We think you have a ruptured Baker's cyst, because they present like a DVT. And sure enough, had MRIs and all that. And my articular cartilage in my knees is worn away, basically. And that may have happened whether or not I'd been squatting heavy or not. I have no way of knowing. I have no old MRIs to compare it to. But that's something that is real and has affected me. So I felt like I had two choices. Could try to still squat heavy and deal with these Baker cysts and wear down my knees quicker and need a knee replacement. Since I don't want to do that, I modify my training. I can do things like hex bar deadlift, and I can even leg press. Maybe I don't have the greatest depth on it in the world, but I can work around it and not set off my knees and not have knee pain. And I can walk around pain free at 57. So, I'm trying to avoid any kind of need for knee replacement as much as I can, because I know we're like on the verge of having injectable stuff that's going to just help you regrow your own cartilage or whatever. And so it's like, I'm not going to go and have this fake knee put in at some point that I could have avoided if I just trained a little more sensibly. Because I don't care if I don't squat 350 anymore. Big deal.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. 'Cause I have some older clients, even younger clients, who are right on the edge of. Usually, it's knee replacement's the big one right now. And same thing, I've been telling them for a couple of years. I'm like, by all means, I'm not an orthopedics. Talk to your doc. Like, ask them, is there anything that's going to make it better? Anything that's going to make it worse? And I'm just like, anything we can do to buy you just 2 more years, because I do think that with cellular therapies, maybe it's peptides, maybe it's something else. Who knows? That the people I've talked to in the biomed industry, they're all pretty positive that in the next 2 to 4 years, like, I think the joint replacements are going to go down quite a bit. And I'm like, either way, if we buy you, let's say, another 2 years, and you do need it replaced, like, that's going to be another add on that 2 more years to the end, because as soon as you have something replaced, there's a limited lifespan of all those things and how much they can do after it wears out and things like that.
Sure. And depending on how long that client has been training with you, an extra 2 years of training is going to make them more resilient if they do have the surgery. So they're going to be able to come back from the surgery quicker anyway. So there's really no downside to continuing training, as long as you're not doing anything to hasten the decline of the knee or whatever joint you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was having. Like, go back to orthopedic, ask them, is there anything you shouldn't do now that if they do need to replace it, it's going to be much harder? If not, okay, then that gives us a little more leeway, to kind of play with things and go from there. And like you even said about decisions, like I had that probably 2 years ago. Like, I would go like kiteboarding, and a couple times, man, my knees were just killing me. And I'm like, okay, like what am I doing here, And I realized, oh, one, I'm probably landing jumps too hard that I shouldn't be landing. So I need to figure, from a skill standpoint, I need to figure out softer landings, better technique. Don't just, what I call pull and pray, send the bar and hope you can land it
Right.
from 20 feet up or whatever.
Oh, God.
And then the other part I realized was, I'm like, oh, okay, if I'm doing a heavy impact, like, what is, if I were to pick, air quote, one muscle, what is probably the main muscle? It's probably the quads are doing a lot of that eccentric braking. And so I'm like, I'll go to the gym and I'll do some quad specific stuff. So I did a hack squat, I did a belt squat where you push your knees really far forward. And I realized, I'm like, oh my God, my quads are pathetically weak. Because I had done a lot of hamstring, a lot of glute stuff, a lot of, squatting and deadlifting and things like that. But I always kind of poo-pooed all the, quad specific stuff. Like, no one really needs that. And after doing a lot more of that work for even just a year, like, oh my God, my knees feel so much better. I can handle a little bit heavier impacts. And so I think a lot of times, like you were saying too, it's decide what are the things you're doing that you might need to change, and then finding an effective way to work around it that works for you too.
Sure, and I know a lot of I don't employ it a whole lot, at least not, with clients. It's a bit cumbersome, but blood flow restriction training.
Sure.
You can lift a lot lighter, especially on something like a leg extension machine, and get massive amount of blood flow to the area, which helps with any kind of possible healing that you can do, and gives the quads a nice stimulus too. So there's definitely ways around it. We don't need to stop training, but we may need to modify training. And if I had to give up barbell bench press, I certainly would. I'm able to do it now, and since I've done the rotator cuff specific work, knock on wood, they're feeling good, and so I'm going to roll with it as long as I can. But I'm not above, like, say, wholesale leaving an exercise out that I used to do, like a barbell back squat. I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah. How is the bench going? I've seen your videos and stuff. It looks like it's going pretty good.
Yeah, considering I hadn't really benched in about 3 months, and I'm really I ease back into it. I'm not trying to see what my actual 1 rep max is at this point. But like one week I just threw 225 on there, and that felt good. So this week I ended up throwing 245 on there, and that felt good. And I was by myself, and I don't like really to unrack stuff by myself above about 245, 250. So I probably could have gone heavier and for maybe 1 to 3. But I'm like, this 245, I haven't even done that for a few months, so I'll take that victory. It was improvement, and so I always tell my clients, don't get greedy. And so I had to tell it to myself, okay, don't get greedy. You already did 245. You didn't do that last week, so next week you want to do 250, 255, go for it then. But knock on wood, everything in the last couple of days since that bench workout, shoulders are feeling good. I do 1 day a week now where I do this kind of 10-12 exercise rotator cuff specific thing, and just doing that once a week has paid some big dividends. And then I'll do a few things like is in my book for a warm up before I do benching and stuff like that. But for me, it does benefit to do that rotator cuff specific stuff, because I was so anterior dominant with all the heavy benching that I just needed to spend more time working on the backside.
Yeah. I always feel like certain exercises kind of have their own risk reward profile. And as I get older, like anything where I'm taking a heavy load into an eccentric right away, I get a little more nervous, like potentially a heavy squat, potentially a heavy bench press, whether using dumbbells or a bar. And then like a deadlift is like the inverse, is like just as soon as my form even changes a little bit, like I'm done, because
Right.
that has the inverse property where, oh, I can get it a little bit more, and your back does some weird thing and goes in a position it hasn't been, and then you're screwed.
Right.
Any tips for people looking to increase their bench press? I guess if you would pull, well, I mean, I go to a commercial gym only twice a week now, but it still feels like Monday is National
bench day.
Press Day.
Right.
I just think of this one kid who's there. He seems really nice, but he's, maybe 5'8", $160, if that. And you can tell he just wants to do 225. And the last time I watched it, I literally thought I'm gonna have to throw battery acid in my eyes to stop watching this, because he gets a lift off, which was good, and the guy's watching him, and he literally goes from the top all the way down, like his chest was bouncing so much. I thought he was gonna like crack his ribs, his butt's, like a foot off the bench, and I'm just like going, oh no, this is so bad.
Yeah, that's the the ego of youth is.
Yep.
Like, nobody gives a shit if you bench 225 or not.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares if I can still bench press 300. My wife doesn't care.
No.
My clients don't care. Nobody cares. Yeah, nothing changes. Even when I finally did bench 300, I didn't bench 300 till I was like 48 years old. It was so like anticlimactic, because here I'd been wanting to do this like my whole life, and I finally got there, and it was like no fanfare, no big deal. It was like nobody cared, and it is what it is. So yeah, if somebody like that obviously would benefit from doing proper technique first and foremost, and get on even something more simple like Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 or some overall or 5x5 or whatever, some real strength building program that's set up with a spreadsheet, and ego can kind of be kept at bay because you're doing specifically what the program says. But from a technique standpoint, the biggest thing I think that anybody should do, especially if they're going to do competitive bench press, is pause bench presses, because you got to pause and wait for the press command anyway. So get used to pause benching. And I've seen so many guys who could, said they could bench so much weight and touch and go with a little bit of a bounce. Yeah, they could eke it out, but you give them a competition pause and they're pegged. They're not getting it off their chest. And I've seen that in competitions with young guys, even guys with coaches, and they use their opener as like what they think their 1 rep max is, and they get stapled and they can't go any lighter. So they're out of the competition.
Get stapled again.
Yeah, it's just 3 staples. I'm like, what are you thinking? Nobody cares what you open with. You get in the competition. So yeah, I think pause bench press is huge. And for people who aren't competitive bench pressers and who are older, if you don't have the range of motion in your shoulders, if you can't quite touch your chest, that's okay. I'll do intentionally like 1-inch pauses where I don't even go and touch my chest. I'll keep it an inch off the chest. So I'm making sure there's not even any imperceptible little momentum from coming down off my chest. So, yeah, I don't think that everybody needs to be barbell bench pressing, and certainly not competition barbell bench pressing. If you can and can do it safely and you love it, like me, yeah, go for it. But nothing wrong with machines, nothing wrong with dumbbells, nothing wrong with cables. Actually, from a chest development standpoint, probably prefer cables. I like the continuous tension that cables provide. And so, and with a lot lighter weights too, for that matter. So I like being able to progress as far as I can with a lighter weight and then earning that heavier weight. And usually when it comes to the big 3, we're just trying to lift heavier and heavier and heavier, regardless of if form is starting to break down or whatever, because ego gets in our way. But nobody really gets ego on like incline cable flies. They just don't tend to do that. So it's a little safer, I think.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of even just a slight incline with just dumbbells, because you can.
I've always done that.
More range of motion. You're not kind of fixed into one path and that kind of thing too.
Yeah, whenever I dumbbell bench, I actually don't do it on a flat ever. It's setting 1 on my bench. So, and what ends up happening, especially if I arch even just a little bit, it ends up being like a flat dumbbell bench anyway. So I'm getting the effect of it without, having it all the way flat. But I'll still do, more traditional incline stuff at a 45-degree incline or a 30-degree or whatever. But yeah, if I'm thinking to replace the barbell flat bench, I will do that dumbbell, but with that slight angle like you're talking about.
Do you have any, I know like Polacone was big on ratios of, pressing to pulling and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any sort of, because you've been doing this stuff with a long period of time, and obviously we'll get into the book and work with a wide variety of clients, on any like programming metrics or strength metrics from a bench press to like a row in terms of like a ratio of strength? Because I've seen on, probably none of the clients I have now, but I can think of one guy in particular, like 7 years ago. I think his dumbbell bench press, I think, was like, he was using 85 pounds for 5 reps, but his like 1-arm dumbbell row was like 45 pounds. And I'm like, oh, yikes. that just seems like a really skewed ratio. Do you have any kind of ratio rules of thumb?
I don't really, other than to make sure that you're doing back work, because so many guys, especially, they do what they can see in the mirror. So they work their pecs, they work their biceps, and to hell with everything else. But, I don't do like, some coaches will say, oh, you need a 2-to-1 ratio of pulling to pushing and all that. It's like, no, I think a 1-to-1 ratio is fine. What I think people tend to do with back exercises is use shitty form And so, especially like I posted a video the other day of my bench and then followed up by the hammer strength isolateral low row.
Nice. I love
And
that one.
yeah, when I show that technique on the video, you can see I draw my shoulders back first before I ever bend my elbows, and then pull back and keep my chest elevated. I'm not trying to turn it either into a crappy bicep exercise or a lower back exercise by pulling off of it. It's supposed to be a chest supported row. So I try to keep, at least my solar plexus pasted against the pad. And, I'm doing 3 plates on each side on that low row. So it's fairly equivalent to my bench press strength. But, I think it depends on what I used. If I used dumbbells, I'd probably do, 55 or 60 pound dumbbells. I probably wouldn't be able to do anywhere close to that. So, I think as long as you're, working the backside and I'm guilty of it, and I have been in the past where it's like, okay, well, I got bench in, and I got a client coming in, I don't really have time to do back, and so you gotta, get out of your own way sometimes, and so yeah, as long as I'm doing, and in my book, like I have predominantly full body workouts, so there's going to be some type of pulling motion every workout. Horizontal, vertical, or what I call hybrid ones, which the hammer strength has an isolateral front pull down, they call it.
Nice.
The angle of that, it kind of starts as a bit of a pull down and ends up at the same point as the row. So I really love that machine too. So what I tend to do is antagonistic pair those things. So I'll do that particular front pull down machine with an incline chest exercise. I have an assisted chin or regular pull-ups if you're strong enough. I'll do that with overhead pressing. Yep. And then with bench press, I'll do, more traditional rowing, typically with the hammer strength since I have it, but it could be a cable row, or it could be a Pendlay row, or whatever you've got. But yeah, I do think you need to, make sure you're getting that posterior stuff in, because especially if you're nuts about the bench press like I am, because you're invariably going to bench too much and not pull enough.
Yeah, that's one thing I saw was like just the pairings, and it's one of those concepts, like I don't know who I stole it from originally, but I wish I would have programmed more of that sooner, because I think so if you look at like dumbbell bench press and one arm dumbbell row, which is something I use like all the freaking time and variations of, it's like if you're cramped for time by definition of alternating, at least I know you're probably getting some rowing in with your bench pressing. Or if I program a block of bench pressing and then a block of rowing, I noticed the rowing got skipped like a lot of the time.
Right.
And then, you're doing the opposite motions. So you get a little bit of rest for the other muscle. You get the antagonist pairing. You get I like the scapular movement even, because a lot of times in bench press, your scapulas are pinned.
Right.
The one arm row, I like the scapula to come all the way out at the bottom and get that nice stretch. So I'm getting a little bit more movement to the muscle too, not just leaving it pinned all the time. And yeah, I just love that type of pairing, or leg extension with leg curls, and it just seems like it's, from a performance standpoint and an efficiency standpoint, it just works so well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, since I don't typically do like super sets or giant sets or things like that with clients, I'm typically more of a straight sets guy. So pretty much every workout actually starts with the back thing. Now, because they've come to see me, they're going to do back no matter what, no matter where I put it in the workout. But because for most people, that's the most neglected thing, at least for upper body, and the thing they have like the least kind of mind muscle connection to. I like to do back stuff when they're fresh, make sure we can do that hard, and it kind of helps to warm up that whole shoulder girdle too if they are going to bench. Now that wouldn't be for somebody who's powerlifting. I'm not going to do super heavy sets and sets of rows before we bench press. That's a little different situation. But for the average person who's just doing whatever exercises that they like to do, I don't mind not starting with bench press. I'd much rather actually start with the back. And in the book, I have a programming where I do a lot of cardio intervals in between. So rather than doing a set, we'll do all of our sets, if it's 3 sets or whatever, on bench. Then we'll go to a 2-minute interval. Then we'll go to the back exercise, or the chest exercise or whatever. Then we'll do another 2-minute interval, then a leg thing, because now they're good and warmed up. So they've had a couple of intervals aside from whatever warm up they did at the beginning. So we're able to get that effect of the straight sets and the heavy work. And I tend to take, close to 3-minute rest between sets with people. But then we do get that a little bit of that high intensity interval stimulus, and their heart rate does stay a bit higher during the weight training than it would have it had we not interspersed those in between. So I really love those for general fitness enthusiasts who just want to be strong and have decent cardiac output too. It's not going to put you at the elite levels of VO2 max just doing that stuff, but for the average client who's pressed for time and I'm only going to see them 1 to 3 hours a week, I like doing it like that. So at least what's under my supervision I know is good solid work.
Yeah, because you also know that I'm sure you have a lot of clients who are very compliant in their off days, and I'm sure you got a lot of clients who, if you're not there, probably do F all nothing.
That's exactly it. And I tell people that when they first sign up with me, I'm like, okay, because I'm not going to try to, hammer somebody to come in 3 times a week. I know that gets expensive, but I'm like, look, if you're active outside of the gym, if you go to, Pilates or yoga and all that kind of stuff's common in LA, you hike, you whatever, you're very active. 2 days a week, if you're consistent and don't miss workouts, you can see fine progress. I've had tons of clients over decades that have worked out strength training twice a week and had fine progress. But I go, but if you're not going to do anything at all, if you don't have an appointment with me, you're just not going to do anything, you might want to consider 3 days a week, if money's not an issue. So I personally think most people should aim for 3 days a week if they can, but as long as they're consistent with 2, that'll be good. But the average person, every other week something comes up and they have to cancel a workout. So if they're a 3-day-a-week person that has to cancel a workout and they get 2 in, we're still good. If they're a 2-day-a-week person and they have to cancel a workout fairly regularly, the 1 day a week is, it's better than nothing, but it really, progress kind of grinds to a halt, especially if they're not doing anything outside of seeing me. It's like, well, I'm happy to see you, but we need to do some more work.
Yeah, that's the first thing I do with writing programs is like, what is your constraint? And people will overestimate the time they can dedicate. They'll be like, oh, I can do an hour Monday through Friday. Okay, let's start with Monday, Wednesday, Friday for like 45 minutes. And then let's give you some cardio to do Tuesday, Thursday. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm going to see if you actually do it,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And people have the best intentions. It's not like they're
of course. Yeah.
lying to you. They really think they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But, it's like people that want to buy a $7,000 treadmill or elliptical or something for their home. And they'll ask me, I say, well, why don't you just go outside and go for a walk the days of the week and the time you think you're going to be able to devote to it. That's a little different in Minneapolis in the winter, sure. But in LA, it's sunny year round. And so I'm like, do that. If you can make yourself go and get up and just go outside and walk consistently, A, you're going to be way ahead of the game anyway. But B, if you still feel like you're going to be even more consistent with it by buying this expensive treadmill, then go ahead and do it. But prove to yourself that you're going to hold yourself accountable to even doing activity, period. And that's free. Just put on your tennis shoes and get the hell outside. But if you can't do that, you're not going to do it just because you bought some expensive thing. I know tons of people, myself included, who have stuff at their house that ends up being a clothes drying rack. Yeah. It's just we don't use it. At home, it can be too easy to be distracted by other stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with people who have nice home gyms and utilize them, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people need the accountability of seeing someone like me or going to a specific place to really get it done, because you just got to know yourself. It's the same thing with food. It's like, if you know you can't resist a certain food, then don't keep it in your house. It's just going to be a constant temptation to you. So, I try to set myself and clients up for success, and everybody's got to know themselves really well. And there's not some cookie cutter thing. You can say, okay, you do this and you're going to get the same results as everybody else who's done this. It's like, nah, we've got to figure out what makes you tick and what is going to work for consistency for the long haul. Because this is a lifetime commitment. You know, being in shape and being healthy. This is not an intervention. This is, you know, how can we make this last a lifetime? So I'm not in any rush to make, you know, huge changes. For a lot of people, just showing up and lifting weights 2 to 3 days a week is a huge change to their life.
Oh, yeah.
So the last thing I want to try to do is put them on some kind of crazy diet. You know, most people will invariably, when they start working out regularly, will start eating better, just because they like it. They like how they feel, and they want to kind of support their training. And they'll usually start drinking less, because the first time they come in to do a workout and they're a little bit hungover, maybe from having too much the night before, like, oh my God, my performance is like crap. I feel like crap. And they don't like that. But if they haven't been working out, they don't really realize how good they can feel. So the things that may be making them feel a little run down or down, they just don't recognize it. So I think, you know, getting in the gym, starting and being consistent pays so many dividends outside of the gym by how people's lifestyle just naturally kind of gravitates towards supporting the gym.
Yeah. Do you have any cardiovascular equipment recommendations? My argument is I would, again, it's whatever people are going to do by far away trumps whatever is optimal. There's no question.
Of course.
And if you're in Minnesota, you can buy a cheap treadmill to get your steps in. By all means, get a treadmill, even though I'm not a big fan of them. But my counter argument would be, I like the rower or the assault bike or even a bike, because you can do a little bit low intensity. It is a little bit harder, but I find that you can actually do pretty high intensity with people who I don't trust to sprint or run or have knee issues or have a freaky shoulder or things like that. Like, you could get some pretty high intensity stuff in by using those pieces of equipment. And sometimes if it saves you the trip to the gym to do it, I would make an argument that if you're motivated, do that first, and then, you know, work with someone like yourself at the gym for, you know, 2 or 3 days a week on more of the strength training. I think you can get a lot of runway out of that. I don't know if you have any preference on that.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I think probably my favorite for most clients is a fan bike, whatever one you want to use, an Airdyne or Echo bike or whatever. The brand doesn't matter. I like the fan bike because, as anybody who's done it knows, no matter how hard you work, you're going to find what your peak is. For some people, it might be 45 RPMs. For other people, it might be 60 or 70 RPMs or whatever. But people are always shocked by how difficult that is. And I like that you're working upper and lower body at the same time. So that's great. I like the concept too for the same reason. I find that a little bit more challenging for people to get good technique on. And it can be a little bit rougher on the lower back for a lot of people, especially if they don't have great technique. But I still love it. It's probably the thing that I use the most myself in training. But with clients, it tends to be the fan bike. For Zone 2 stuff, just because of my knees, I prefer the recumbent bike. I'm able to have a pretty decent level of tension on the bike, even staying in Zone 2, which as an old guy is fairly low heart rate. But I can get a decent tension on there, so I get a bit of a quad stimulus from it as well, which is nice since I'm not squatting so heavy. And if you've ever seen a sprint cyclist's thighs, they're huge. Pretty damn huge. So not that my legs are like that by any stretch, but I do get, you know, some stimulus, which does feel good. A lot of people for years have poo-pooed the elliptical. I think the elliptical is a fine piece of equipment. Different brands, depending on how they adjust, might work better for certain heights, people, and that kind of thing. But, you know, again, I like something that's less impactful. It has the option of upper and lower at the same time. I wear a heart rate strap. I wear a polar strap, so it gets my heart rate up fine. So it gets my heart rate up better than the treadmill. I can't run on my knees, but I can't really walk fast enough at a high enough incline to get my heart rate as high as the elliptical will for whatever reason. So I like the elliptical. And I think for a lot of people that, especially who aren't dyed-in-the-wool athletes, I think that can be a great thing for the home. I think Airdynes, you know, they're probably the cheapest thing and the smallest footprint for your space. but don't get a fan bike thinking that you're going to do zone 2 on that for like 30 to 60 minutes. Yeah, it ain't going to happen. But people think that. I think they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays people are more cognizant of what high intensity interval training is and that type of thing. But in the old days, people were just thinking cardio. So they would go to a store that had stuff like an Airdyne and get on it for like a minute and be like, oh yeah, this is great. And then they get it home and they think they're going to do a half an hour on it. And it's like, oh my God, I'm like dying after the second minute. So I do think people need to kind of just be aware that it is for a specific purpose. It's interval training is your thing, which I think, for most people, the bang for your buck time wise is so much better with that. Or I love your 6-minute protocol on the concept too.
Yeah.
I do that quite a bit actually. So anything like that can save me time, I like. And like I said, with the home people in mind, I think the Airdyne is great if you're using it, for the right purpose, just because it's so much less expensive and takes up so much less space. And you can usually find them on Craigslist or something like that pretty cheap, because people have bought them thinking they're going to use them and they never do because they're so hard.
Yeah. I found for lower to moderate intensity, even up to maybe zone 4, depending upon where you're at, like just buy an old bike, put road tires on it. I still have my mountain bike from high school. That's all it is. And just buy a used like fluid trainer on the back, so the back wheel is the only thing spinning. You don't need any fancy metrics. I have a $20 Garmin thing I just slapped onto the back axle. It only tells me speed. You don't need power. And that's like a really cheap way to do some low to moderate intensity stuff. I mean, it's not the most comfortable thing. Bike seats are still not that fun, but for people looking, if they can't find anything used, like that's a pretty inexpensive way of, having some metrics and something that doesn't take up a massive footprint for pretty inexpensive money too.
Sure, yeah, a lot less expensive than a recumbent bike. I mean, I love my recumbent bikes, but you're not going to get one of those for near as cheap as you could do that setup like you're talking.
Yeah. And so what do you do for the intervals between training? Like, tell us a little bit more about what that looks like. What are you trying to achieve? What modalities do you use?
So typically, I mean, it kind of depends on the client and what they like, because obviously it has to be enjoyable. And I don't do it with every client. There's some clients who are very active outside of the gym, especially for cardio. They might be avid runners or hikers or whatever. So I don't feel the need to do interval stuff with them. They can just work on strength training with me. But people who need it and who aren't afraid to work hard will generally be the Airdyne. It'll be the fan bike, just because, as I said earlier, it's so easy to dial it in for the individual. And it doesn't matter to me if they're only going 35 RPM. If that's hard for them, then great. And then we can also know that when they're able to do 40 RPM or 45 or 50 or whatever, that they're getting better. We don't need anything super fancy to tell us that, other than their ability to exert effort is better. I'll usually start with 2-minute intervals on that. And if people get pretty adept at that, and I think I can push them, the last 10 seconds of the 2 minutes, I will have them try to hit a PR. How high can you push the RPMs? And so I would not do that on day one with somebody I'd never trained before, because they would throw up in all likelihood. But if I see that somebody handles the 2 minutes, and some people don't, some people 2 minutes on a fan bike will wreck them, and we'll have to take quite a bit of rest before we go back to that next weight training exercise. But people whose conditioning is pretty good and they start being able to handle the 2 minutes, no problem. I'll do that 2 minutes with the 10-second sprint at the end. I've used the concept too as well, but again, it's just so much harder to teach proper technique. And for some people that are very in tune with their bodies, I've had worked with dancers and different types. That's not a problem. We can teach them pretty quickly. And other people are like physically dyslexic, and it's just not worth our time to try to make that work for them. We'll use something else. I do have a StepMill. That's the revolving staircase. Brutal. Yeah, so I've had that for many, many years. You may not see them a whole lot anymore, but I find that I like that, like for Stephen Perkins, the drummer from Jane's Addiction.
Yeah.
Um, so he's one of my clients. He's on the back cover of my book. Um, for him, because he does so much with his upper body drumming. Not that
Yeah.
he's not using his lower body too, he is, but especially the upper body. So I don't really feel like I want to do intervals with him where I'm using the rower or the fan bike because I want to avoid that extra upper body wear and tear on him, on
Yep.
his shoulders. So with him, I will use the StepMill. And especially before he's going to go out on tour, we really push the 2 minute intervals on the StepMill and get his cardio conditioning up. Because if you ever seen him in person or seen a video of him play, the guy's
It's
a
crazy.
maniac. Yeah, he's a great drummer. So for him, each song, and their songs aren't necessarily short songs. There can be
They're long
some
songs at times.
yeah, there can be some long ones, and he's going for it. So he needs to have that level of conditioning. So for him, I gravitate towards that StepMill. I find a lot of women like the StepMill because it just makes them feel like they're working their booty more. Which fine, I'm with whatever people will do and they will like, because it's all about that consistency thing, always.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the conditioning of drummers in particular, especially in more, I guess you could say, kind of the alternative metal area because it seems to be a lot more active, and it's crazy to me to watch the different styles. So someone like him versus I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the drummer for Lorna Shore, amazing drummer, but he's so quiet and efficient, but he's doing crazy stuff like just nasal breathing the whole time. And then you
Wow.
compare him to like Eli Costagran, who's in Slipknot now, used to be in Sepultura. He just looks like he's gonna fucking kill everything like every single time, but he'll do it for longer songs, back to back songs, and I'm like, how did just the level of conditioning to pull that off? And then you've got a handful of drummers like the former drummer who used to be with Atreyu before when Alex was singing with them. He would do some vocals. I also think of Bram Dollar from Mastodon does a lot of vocals while drumming. And that to me
Crazy.
is just another level. So now you're drumming. So not only are you doing multiple things at once, you have to have breath control and to sing some clean lyrics on the top of doing all this stuff. To me, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, it really is. It's unbelievable. Another one of my clients is another drummer, Jimmy DeAnda. He's Bullet Boys drummer. He's
Oh, nice.
also, yeah, he's also done some stuff with George Lynch and a little bit substituting in with Rat and stuff.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
Jimmy's a different style of drummer than Perkins is, and Jimmy is going for it, like hitting those skins
Yeah.
hard, and
Yeah.
he's like it's like a fight, So
Yeah.
so yeah, there are different styles, but they all need to be in incredible shape. It really is. And that's actually why Jimmy had started seeing me because he saw what kind of shape Perkins was in, and he's like, I'm having a little trouble now getting through sets on tour. I'm not in the shape that I used to be in. So that's how I started training him, and he kind of just completely did a 180 with where he was headed versus what he's at now. Now, they're both a year older than me. So they're 58 and they're fucking great, man.
Yeah. I also think of singers the same way. Like some singers are very stationary, some move around a lot. Like I think of Mike Muir from Suicidal Tendencies, who's, God, he's got to be getting close to 60, I think now. And I saw him live a couple of years ago, and he's like running around the stage the whole time and didn't miss a beat singing or anything like that either. And to do that for extended periods of time, I think people underestimate the amount of conditioning you have to pull that off and not have it affect the vocals at the same time.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at Mick Jagger.
Yeah,
I mean, the
Jagger's
dude's in
how
his
old is he?
80s. He's in his 80s. Now, I did not know this actually. Jimmy DeAnda, I think, or was it Perkins? One of them, maybe it was Perkins, told me that Mick Jagger's dad was like the Jack LaLanne of Great Britain. He was like
Oh,
some
I didn't know
big
that.
fitness. Yeah, he was some big fitness guru. So Mick kind of had that instilled in him at a young age. And you think about it, you looking back, from the 60s on, he's never been a guy who has been overweight. If anything, he would look underweight.
He looks the
you know,
same
so
almost.
yeah, exactly. You know, just a little older. So yeah, it's amazing how much you can do if you just stay consistent and doing it. And it's a cliche, but use it or lose it is just truer and truer the older you get. And sometimes you don't realize it until you get older because, you know, I could skip months of training when I was younger and jump back into it pretty quickly and, you know, not even get that sore or whatever. But now, like you said, I miss a couple weeks and it's like, oh man, it's a slog to get back into this. So yeah, consistency is king.
Do you find that there's, my guess is similarities between musical artists and even like, I guess I group them as Hollywood performers, that there seems to be a much more emphasis now on, like for a better word, like healthy aging. I think with like performers, you have the physical aspect of, oh my God, I went and did that show. It wasn't as good as I think it should have been. Oh my God, I better start training. You know, it seems like there's a lot more. I mean, I can go down the list of how many people I know in different bands who, you know, their training is pretty, you know, legit. You know, Matt Hafey from Trivium, like does a lot of BJJ while he's training, has a nutritionist, has a trainer, very dedicated, obviously, you know, singing, doing long shows. It seems to be that that's more of the trend now, like the, you know, Lemmy of the past who was just a genetic freak who I don't know how he could live that way and pull it off, but he did. Like those people are very far and few between now, it seems.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, you know, indicative of nowadays performers of any kind are in such a public eye.
For sure.
More so because before there was internet, and I'm old enough to remember before there was internet. So unless you saw somebody on like People magazine or Tiger Beat or whatever, you know, people had privacy, and now there's, you know, there's paparazzi all around taking bad pictures of you. So there's not wanting to look bad in the public. There's obviously wanting to perform better. But then I think, at least in LA, because we are such a fitness culture, and so it's, you don't want to be kind of left out of that. You don't want to be the oddball. And especially when other people in your sphere, other actors, other musicians, whatever, you're like, well, I don't want to be the schlub that's, you know, still trying to go out there and get it done. So yeah, but you know, we're still fighting. The couch is our biggest adversary when it comes to fitness. Most people still aren't training. I would say, you know, 85% of people over 50, I think is what I had in the book when I looked it up. 85% of people don't weight train 2 days a week or more. That's a lot of people who are missing out on the benefits of that. So in LA, we tend to get a skewed version of what most people are doing because, like, it's not unusual. I mean, I'm a fit guy and stuff for 57, but you know, you see guys in their 70s here who look damn good, and you're like, holy crap, you know, this is like amazing. Men and women both. And so, you know, I think it's trying to maybe reach those people where, and I grew up in Illinois. I remember what it was like in the winter, and you'd wear so many layers. Nobody see your body. So you know, put on some poundage in the winter and then try to, you know, take it off in the spring before the pools opened and that kind of thing. But I think for kind of a more mature crowd who that maybe is not a motivator anymore, they're not thinking about going to the pool this summer. It's got to get back to that health and lifestyle component of it, because you don't have to be resigned to the rocking chair in your 50s or 60s or even 70s. And the clients that I've worked with over the years are living proof of that. You can do amazing things, but you do have to do it. It's not going to happen accidentally. It's not going to happen because you decided to take this protein powder or take creatine or whatever it is if you're not,
or this new peptide,
training
hard, because you got to do peptides, bro. Well, I mean, come
on.
Oh
my God. I know. It's like, get your BP 157 or, you know, whatever. And they all are. It's like, Yeah, let's not even go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I think, most people need to just, get off their butts and get moving and make that a consistent part of their lifestyle. And far too many people, they may have, they talk about it in the book. They have kids, and they may have older parents who they're now taking care of, and so they're being pulled in a lot of different directions. And their careers are usually still going strong, and they may be busier than ever at their career because now they're like the CEO or the VP or whatever. And so they are busy, but they still got to find time to do it, because when you've got that many areas of your life pulling you in these different directions, you need to be fit, and you need to be resilient, and you need to be able to withstand that, to be able to achieve your ultimate goal of taking care of everybody else. You have to take care of yourself first to be able to take care of everybody else. It's just like flying in a plane. Put your oxygen mask on first, then put it on the kids or on grandpa or whatever. You got to do that with your fitness. You got to take care of yourself first, and then you're going to be able, not only you're going to be a good example for everybody else in your life, but you're going to actually be able to be more resilient and handle all the stresses and everything that go along with all that responsibility.
Yeah, I agree. So tell us a little bit more about the book. Why did you decide to write it? I know it's specifically for people over 50, which I think is great, because oh man, I'm sure you get these comments all the time. I've had people younger than me by like 10 years are like, oh man, I don't want to train anymore. It's just too late. I can't do it. I'm like, what are you thinking?
Right.
You're 42.
Exactly. Well, I'm pretty sure I talk about it in the book. I can't remember, but a quote that I always use in everyday life with clients. Somebody comes in and like, well, I'm too old to do this. I go, no, you're too old not to do it.
Yeah, it's even more important now.
Yeah, it's more critical you do it at this age, because you are slowly circling the drain, and we are going to try to put a stopper in that drain for a bit and reverse course for a little while, and then keep your head above water for as long as we can. So yeah, you're too old not to work out. Start working out now. Get as strong as you can while you're as young as you're ever going to be, and then try to maintain that for as long as you can. And that's really my goal with myself and with all my clients.
It's a weird paradox where people are like, oh, I'm too old to start now. I'm like, but you realize if you wait, you're going to be older. So let's say that was a valid excuse. That would almost be the reason, like you mentioned, to start now. That would be the reason to let's go now and not wait another 10 years, because how much function and muscle and things you're going to lose, it does accelerate as you get older. So I agree. That's a reason to start sooner, not later.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the benefits of I've been a personal trainer in LA for over 33 years. I've had a gym for 23 years. And I've had clients who've been with me 25, 26, 30 years.
Oh, it's so crazy.
So I've seen people through seasons of their life, from 30s, 40s, 50s, or 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever that is. And every single one, the earlier they started, the better they were able to maintain it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not beneficial to start if you are older. I had a client who didn't start training with me till she was 87, and she continued to get stronger up on into her 90s until she passed away from cancer at 95. But one of my actually favorite parts of my career, and the celebrity stuff is fun, and the book is fun and all that, but that client who passed away at 95, I got a text from her daughter after she passed that thanked me, because even at the end in the hospital before she died, she was able to get up and go to the bathroom herself. She did not have to lay there in her own filth as she, went on to the next realm. So for me, that's like a powerful, powerful thing. And it's way more important to me to give somebody like dignity in their death, because they were able to still be functional. There's no better thing in my career than that, really.
Yeah. And you probably may have noticed this in your own life, that I think I don't ever want to say I'm not ever going to be training for performance, but there becomes a time point where, like we kind of tossed at the beginning, what is the cost of it? And I'm putting this off as long as possible, like accepting that now I'm just trying to protect the downside. But I think the way you protect the downside is by still ironically pushing performance in an intelligent manner. So I don't think the mindset ever really changes.
No, I talk about it in the book. I still try with every client, every workout to set a PR. Now, that is not what you think in terms of 1 rep maxes. It has nothing to do with 1 rep max. But, I'm old school. I keep a written log. I don't use an iPad or anything. And trainers who don't keep logs of their clients' workouts, period, just drive me crazy.
Oh,
then
it's just my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, it's like all you're trying to do is get them tired and, then run them out. But you don't know that they're going to progress. But my clients, I have everything written down that they've ever done. I have 30 some years of workout books that I just can't throw away because I know it's my history. And so I can look at all this and I can say, okay, and I'll tell everybody this every workout. Okay, the last time we did this exercise, we did 3 sets of 8 with this weight. I go, let's try to beat it. If we 9 or 10, even on one set, great. Let's see what happens. And we'll see what happens. And that's how we stack days. And so it'll happen like sometimes people will struggle. They'll get like 10, 10, 8 on something. They just can't get past that 10, 10, 8. So I may lighten it up and may do some higher reps for a week, see what happens, and go back to the heavier. Or if somebody's stuck, especially if it's a little higher rep range, if they're stuck with like 15, 15, and 11, well, I'm not going to wait there until we get 3 sets of 15. I'm like, you know what? Depending on what the exercise is, we'll go up a certain amount of weight, whether it's 5 pounds or 25 pounds, if it's a leg press or something. We'll go up and just back the reps off to 3 of 10, because at that point, I don't find the benefit to struggling on that 3rd set. For whatever reason, they're too tired, and we've tried this 2 or 3 times, and it hasn't improved. So their form is good. Let's just go heavier and see what happens. But, progress is never linear. It's fits and spurts, and you'll be stuck at something for a while, and then all of a sudden you have this big jump up where you did like 6 more total reps than you did the workout before. I had that happen with a client today, and I'm like, holy crap, what happened? Yeah. This is great. But that's, to be expected, because there's so many factors outside of the workout that really are determining what they come in with on that day. Their sleep, their stress, their diet, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the only way that I can guarantee that clients are improving is to keep track of it and then get their buy-in by saying, okay, this is what we did before, this is what we're trying now. And usually what will happen is I will have to actually rein clients in, because they want to beat those numbers so badly that they might let their form start to suffer. Like, no, that doesn't count. We got to, do it with good form. But yeah, I think, you can make clients a part of the process just by hitting those types of PRs without having to grind somebody down to a nub every workout and prove what a badass trainer you are, because I can make somebody puke or whatever. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the old, I think it was a Mel Siff quote, like, any monkey can make you sweat, right? It's just like,
absolutely.
To make something hard isn't that hard to do, doesn't require a lot of skill set, but to make them progress, like in your case, for decades, that's a skill set.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know. So you are blessed, I guess, with clients that have certain afflictions or things that come up in their life, and you have to find a way around that. Even just yesterday, I had a client, and I did something with them that I'd never done in 33 years. I just kind of changed something because I thought, well, you know what? This might work. Something popped into my head, and I saw how they were doing a lying leg curl with the furniture sliders. And so I grabbed my NT loop, because they were fine on the eccentric, but they just didn't quite have the strength for the concentric. So
Mm.
I put the NT loop around their hips, held them up a little bit, and said, okay, try it now. And they were able to do it and get through it. And so then I was able to use on the second set a little less support from me, and they were still able to do it. In the final set, I really didn't give them any. I just was there more for moral support, and they, saw my hands. They were holding the strap, but I wasn't lifting at all. And they were able to do the exercise, but we just had to kind of get them over that mental hurdle. Well, the longer you've been in the game, the more those kind of things come up, because you're like, oh, let me try this. This might work. I've seen something similar before. So I had that happen with my client Barbara, who I talk about in the book. I trained her for 25 years. She survived breast cancer and a bad fall where she shattered her arm. And they said, she'd never have use of her hand again and shouldn't lift more than 5 or 10 pounds. And then we slowly rehabbed her from that. And at 70 years old, she won the World Bench Press Championships in Prague.
That's amazing.
So yeah. So with her, after she'd had the breast cancer and the sentinel node removed, and this was on the opposite side of her body that she'd had the shattered arm, she couldn't lift her arm overhead. And so I'm trying to figure this out. What can she do? And she would do this exercise in rehab where she had to crawl her hand up the wall. So she could get her arm overhead, but she couldn't lift it up overhead from the side. So I'm like, all right, let's try this. So she crawled up. I go, just lower it. Just do the eccentric. And she lowered it. And once she realized mentally that she could actually go through the range of motion, it didn't take her long before she was able to do the concentric too. But you had to have that ability to think outside of the box and be like, okay, well, I know you can get your arm overhead. Let's just see what happens if you can lower it. If she couldn't lower it, if it was somehow locked up or she had zero control over it and it just fell, that would have been a different story. But, I think the more experience you have, the more you're able to figure things out that might work in a certain situation. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, but at least you're more likely to have something that's going to help somebody rather than just resign them, to the dustbin.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell us more. Where can people get the book? I know it's out now. How can they pick it up?
Yeah, well, pretty much anywhere you buy books, it's available. It's, worldwide. So whether it's Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Books A Million, it's on Apple Books, on Google Books. I mean, everywhere you get a book, you can certainly go to the publisher, Human Kinetics. I like to support, smaller businesses. So if you'd rather do that and go directly to Human Kinetics rather than go through Amazon or something, that's great too. It's all good. But I think for Gen Xers like myself, aside from the workout stuff that's in there and the things I address with, medications or certain adjustments you may need to make for exercises, I think you'll like the 80s references that I sprinkle throughout, because you're not going to find too many. Yeah, you're not going to find too many fitness books that talk about movies like Can't Buy Me Love or Miami Vice or Dungeons and Dragons or stuff like that. So I tried to make it an enjoyable read so that people would want to continue reading and actually get the nuts and bolts of the information. The workouts themselves, you could do if you were 20, 30, 40, that doesn't matter. The reason that it's geared to somebody 50 plus is that's what Human Kinetics wanted. I happen to have had a lot of experience training people in that age group, and I happen to be in that age group. So the fact that I had all those things going for me, I think lent itself to me writing this book. But it's definitely different than most fitness books that you will read. It's still, evidence-based stuff, but it's maybe a little less dry and academic than typically what you would see. So I'm hoping because of that people will give it a chance, and then we'll implement the workouts, because the workouts there's nothing crazy in there. They're simple, they're straightforward. Most of them are full body workouts, whether you have 2, 3, or even 4 days a week to devote to it. We talk about nutrition in chapter 3. We talk about recovery and cardio in chapter 14. So there's something there really for everybody. And whether you're 50 or you are going to be someday, it's I think a good book to help get you there and thrive beyond.
Yeah, and it's a very easy read, and I like that it was very complete. Like, you've got everything there. You've got the samples, you've got your warm-ups and special cases and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was nice because it gets rid of all the excuses most people would have if they're 50 and trying to lift. It's like, no, like, go to this chapter, go to the next chapter, go to the next chapter. Like, for literally the price of the book, like, they're all good to go. So I would, highly recommend people check it out. I think it turned out really good. I appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, so thank you. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to get more people aware of the book. My big hope is just that people implement it. It's not about book sales, that's great, but it's really just about getting information into people's hands, that 85% who aren't using it, because most of the time, even this book is geared toward the intermediate lifter who has access to a full gym. But I tried to give options in there for people who maybe hadn't been working out in a while, or even had never really worked out. And in each of the exercises, there's a section at the end of the description called Chad's Take. And in Chad's Take, that's where I talk about all those little idiosyncrasies that, well, if you feel this, you may need to try this instead. And that's been a big hit for a lot of the people who've read the book. They really appreciate that. And I tried to make a book that was as close to training with me in person as it could be. And so my clients who do train with me, who've read the book, they said I did a good job of that. So if you've ever thought you might want to train with somebody like me, the book is probably the closest thing that you've got out there right now, unless you live in LA, then give me a call.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll put a link down below for the book. I highly recommend everyone check it out. And thank you so much for your time today, Chad. I really appreciate it. This was great.
All right. Thanks, Mike. It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Huge thanks to Chad for coming on the podcast and discussing his brand new book from Human Kinetics, which I highly recommend you check out, called Building Strength and Muscle After 50. You can find it on the Human Kinetics website we put in down below. You can also find it through your favorite bookseller, Amazon, and pretty much any place books are sold. So again, I've really enjoyed it. I thought it turned out really, really well. And make sure to check out Chad on the old Instagram and all the social media stuff. If you're in the Los Angeles area, I don't know if he's taking any clients right now or not, but you can inquire with him. If you want more information from myself, make sure to hop on to the free newsletter. Put a link down below. Try to send you entertaining content and research-based stuff that's also practical that you can use. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. No worries. And we send you a cool free gift when you sign up too. So check that out below. And as always, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you could help us out with the old algorithms, give us a thumbs up, download, subscribe, stars, whatever the old algorithms need right now to show actual human interaction. Does go a long way to help with distribution of the podcast, since this is all organic-based growth. So thank you so much for that. And if you even have a minute or two, if you could leave us a review, especially on iTunes, that makes a huge difference with the rankings, distribution, and everything else. As always, if someone you think may enjoy this one, please forward it to us, share us online. Make sure to tag myself so I can say thanks along with Chad. Thank you so much for listening. Got a ton of great guests coming up here on the podcast. As always, thank you so much. Talk to you next week.
There's something wrong with this hearing aid.
Yeah, what's wrong?
I can't hear with it.
Oh, no wonder. It's too far away.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. The podcast is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should not use the information on the podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease, or prescribing any medication or other treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider before taking any medication or nutritional supplement, and with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this or any other podcast. Reliance on the podcast is solely at your own risk. Information provided on the podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and any of the health professionals affiliated with our podcast. Information and statements regarding dietary supplements are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to therein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.